Invisible work. Sounds good. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Be sure to find out all about us at focusgroupradio.com. You'll also find our podcast there, which is TFG Unbuttoned, 20 minutes in and out. You'll also find our sponsors there. Be sure to click on their logos and start shopping away, and we'll talk to you a little bit about John's in a generous mood, and we'll be giving away socks. So listen during our deep discount segment later on in the show. We'll talk about that. After we take a quick break, we're also going to have our business birthday and shop talk, which talks about invisible work, which is something you've talked about a lot, although you never gave it a name.
I never gave it a name, no. But I'm glad to see that you, on a different front, you got the memo in terms of wardrobe today. I think the memo went out was like plaid shirts, right?
Well, we always wear blue, and then I had a meeting with the city, and I think I wore this. Yeah, I wore the same. I didn't change. But they're going back. We're going back now that the mask mandate and everything is gone. We're going back to in-person meetings.
Oh, that should be good.
Well, I'm getting used to the Zoom ones now. I don't want to have to get all dressed up.
And go to City Hall, right?
Go to City Hall, right? I mean, right now I can did it, 2 minutes before. Click on, zip, I'm here. Shut the camera off, go to the bathroom, do the things you need to do.
It's funny you brought up the mask thing because our building, the city, New York City and Jersey and Connecticut, a few other places have lifted the mandates for kids in school. And our building, I'm on our co-op board, they wanted to follow suit, so now the building doesn't have to you don't have to wear it in public places and stuff. It's going to feel kind of weird for a little bit, don't you think? I mean, you guys have been a little non-masked for a while because of your, the infection rate and your location, but it's going to be a little odd.
Rural population. I laughed. I think it was on Saturday Night Live this weekend. Didn't somebody say something like they were spoofing on New York City? They said, restaurants will no longer pretend they're looking at your vaccination card in New York City.
They try to do there, and everybody I'm sure is hopefully acting honestly, but yeah, you have to wonder, right? Like, yeah.
Well, listen, I loved not having a cold for 2 years, right? Last winter and the winter before. I mean, I was used to getting colds all the time. We all got colds in the winter, but I didn't know anybody who got a cold with the mask thing. And so I like the mask just for that. Not getting a
Bob
cold.
said to me the other day that even if they take it, we still have to wear them on mass transit, and most people still have to wear them on buses and planes and trains, But when they do eventually change that, he said to me, are you going to feel weird in the wintertime wearing one? And I said, no, because it's just like what you said, Tim. It's kind of interesting not to have been sick for 2 years, right?
Right.
With just ridiculous colds and stuff.
And whereas you used to look at people that were crazy, I know when I used to go to, when I traveled to Japan a lot in my other life, I used to see people wearing masks all the time. And I always thought it was somewhat odd, but, there are such close confines. Tokyo's got 20 plus million people, and the cramped subways and transit and just on the streets. And a lot of times people would wear masks. And we from Western culture kind of felt odd about it, but now I don't think nobody will look at you now. I don't think, unless you're in somewhere where it's anti-vaxxer territory. You head south, go to Texas,
Florida.
Go see DeSantis in Florida.
Maybe the governor will yell at you for wearing a mask on TV, and you're a kid, and you're like, what's going on? What is this guy doing?
These people are. Yeah, go ahead.
I was up in the Nutmeg state, which is Connecticut, our home stomping ground. I was staying with my mom for a few days, and I tell you, Tim, that saying they always say you can't go back. You know when people say you can't go back. I don't know if I could ever go back. I mean, it would be very different. It's a very different state, or our towns are very different from what we grew up in.
Well, yes, very much. Did you go through Southbury?
Mm-hmm. You bet
Southbury's
I did.
really changed.
My mom even commented on it. She said, I think they have different zoning laws there because it's very developed.
Yeah, they have one stamp. It's called approved.
Yeah. Remember the pumpkin patch?
Yeah.
So they've even built more. You probably last time you were there, you probably saw they built even more down there.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy what's going on there. But there's no turning back. I think I think the only place in that area now. I'm not sure about Middlebury because you guys never had much commercial anyway. But Woodbury has kept to
Yep.
their
Yep,
kept
they
to their
have.
standards.
They have.
Has this Roxbury and Washington. Did you get over to Washington Depot?
We went to the depot. Can you pronounce it for me? Lake Warmog? Am I saying that
Like
right?
Warmog, yeah.
Warmog. We drove around the lake. You know, I was going to the grocery store for my mom, and I had time to get back to the house, and I just thought I'm just going to take a ride at Quasi, and I'll see where I end up. I ended up in Oxford.
Oof.
I went by the Oxford airport. I didn't know where I was, and I was like, I had to, find my way back. But you can't get too lost in Connecticut. But Oxford, actually, I don't remember the last time I was there. It has a cute little hamlet downtown thing, a couple restaurants. Have you been to Oxford lately?
I think the last time I was in Oxford was 1978.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Tim, I got to tell you, the last time might have been high school for me. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know where I was. I'm like, where am I? And this is a town right next to where we grew up. It's like in Manhattan, they say your life is lived within 4 blocks of your apartment. And I'm guessing in Connecticut, it's lived within, 8 miles of your house?
Well, I remember one time I was in Manhattan and I was staying with our friend Jay up on the Upper East Side, and I told her I was going to go down and see you. We were going to meet for lunch somewhere in Chelsea. She's like, "Where's that?" And I was like, "Whatever." Where's that? So
Jay.
Yeah.
And that's quintessential Jay beyond anything else, right?
right. And you'd say the same thing. I'm going to the Upper East Side. Where's that?
Well, before we moved on to the Upper West, we thought when you had to take the train uptown, you needed an oxygen mask. We're going so far north. Put oxygen.
Hey, did you see the thing with I tried to find out. I was going to do it as it caught my eye, but I couldn't find out whether it was true or not. But it was all over the papers, and then it was actually on MSN, on MSN's news feed, that some woman with a jar of pickles, they're calling it a jar of cucumbers, took out a Russian drone.
How'd she do that?
Some Ukrainian woman, she was up in a high rise, and I guess there was a Russian drone that was one of these smaller drones.
Yeah.
And she picked up a jar of pickles and threw it at her. It says a jar of cucumbers, but, jar of pickles, and knocked the drone down. God bless her.
That's a projectile / weapon I would never think of, right? Jar of pickles.
Well, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, they're showing these pictures of some of these farmers that are stealing the Russian tanks and Russian artilleries with their tractors. Somebody says American pickers will be there in 30 years. Oh, yeah, I picked that up. Tell me how'd you get this? How'd you get this surface to air launcher? I drug it. The Soviets came in.
I
Russians
dragged it
came
into
in.
the barn, put a burlap tarp over it, called it a day. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny what's going on there, but I do love the strength and the durability of the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And,
I agree.
yeah. So Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
All right. I think that you are going to find this one to be close to one of our favorite headlines of all times. Topless, headless body, topless bar. This is sort of close. But basically, the headline is this, and it's a very short article. Comes to us from Denver, but it's a box of human heads stolen from truck in Denver. A box of human heads. Okay, here we go. Police in Denver are investigating the theft of a box of human heads from a parked truck in the city last week. The unknown suspect who stole the box, labeled exempt human specimen, they have no idea who the suspect is. The box was full of human heads meant to be used for medical research. The box also bore a stamp that said Science Care. Label KDVR reports. Science Care is a program for donating bodies to science for research and educational purposes. The truck was parked in the 7700 block of East 23rd Avenue. If you lived in Denver, I suppose you know where that is. When the thief broke into the freight company's truck sometime between 2:30 p.m. Wednesday and 9:30 a.m. Okay. So right off the bat, that's a pretty long time that truck's parked there.
Right.
Thursday, and left the box of human remains in a dolly, police said. It's unclear if the suspect was aware of what was inside of the box. No arrests have been made, and investigations are continuing. And police are encouraging anyone who has information to come forward. And there's a tipster line. You could earn $2,000 if you if you come forward with information about who stole the box of human heads. Could you imagine getting this thing home? You think maybe it's electronics or whatever. You open it up and
I got a
maybe you
bunch of
can't.
drugs. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can't read, but I mean, wouldn't you kind of think that if the box said human remains or something like that, that you wouldn't want to steal it? Maybe it's me. I don't know.
First of all, I'm a little bit concerned about heads. So,
Yes.
I understand they did cadavers. You do medical research. But what are they doing with heads?
Great question. I
Maybe
did
it's
more.
dental. Maybe it's for dental work. I don't know.
I did what you did on many of the articles you find sometime that are almost like too hard to believe. I went and I double checked this and found 7 to 8 other stories from the Colorado area and then one from a Chicago paper. So yeah, there was a box of heads that got stolen, but not one of them said, oh, and by the way, these heads were destined for blankety
Right.
blankety blank or brain surgeons or, it's kind of weird, right?
Or they're going to do, right, or eye doctors will look at, these were all heads that people had severe glaucoma or cardiac or cataracts.
Or brain injury or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally crazy. So that was mine.
So mine's a little different, but equally as I had to check it because they're blaming the scoop. So the headline is personal trainer dies from caffeine overdose after accidentally drinking the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee.
Oh my God, 200. I like the picture you gave me to put in here, by the way. Little beefcake having coffee. Nice.
That's him. He's dead.
That's him.
No,
Oh.
I spent a little time finding something for you to look at. So if you're watching the video.
Cat to the catnip. Same here.
And by the way, there's a lot of things you can't use anymore. They all have that Getty over them.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, this was a 29-year-old personal trainer from England outside of London and named Tom Mansfield, 29 years old. And so this is all throughout the article. They keep saying he got his maths wrong. M-A-T-H-S, maths.
Yeah, like
wrong.
his calculation for calories or whatever, right?
Wouldn't we just say he didn't measure properly? Would you ever say you got your maths wrong? First of all, I have trouble saying it. I got my maths wrong. My maths wrong. Have you ever
I
said
have
that?
heard that. It's funny you bring it up, but I have read it and I have heard it from folks in the UK. They got
there
they
you
got
go.
the
That's
figures.
why.
I want the figures on that. I want the figures
Right.
on that.
Aluminum. They throw that extra aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah.
Aluminium. There's too many syllables. Anyway, Tom's Manfield got his maths wrong when measuring his dose of caffeine powder, the coroner said. So he ingested 5 grams of caffeine powder, which was the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee. So he bought this 100 milligram tub. So a lot of weightlifters, you get protein powder, you get caffeine to help you, stimulate your workout, make you feel more energized, and it'll burn more fat when you're doing your workouts, right? So he buys this caffeine powder and he mixes it, but doesn't pay attention to how he was to mix it because he said there was no scoop. So if there was a scoop,
That's A.
So apparently if there was a scoop, everything would have been
might
okay.
have done better.
Because the recommended dose of caffeine powder that, according to the for the gym goers that it said on the label, was between 60 to 300 milligrams, or 0.002 to 0.01 ounces.
Wow.
They said, but Mansfield's digital scale started at the weight of 2 grams, which was already 0.07. And then because the product didn't come with a measuring scoop, he kind of did it by eye, and he miscalculated the measurement and scooped up to 5 grams of powder into the cup and then mixed it up. They said he was aiming for the mid-range, but he got his maths wrong, according to the BBC. So he took a sip of the mixture, and witnesses that were there said that, he kind of, made a face or whatever that was a little strong, but he downed it really quick, the rest of it, on January 5th. After he drank it, he began clutching his chest and complaining his heart was beating fast. Minutes later, he started foaming at the mouth. Paramedics arrived. They tried to resuscitate him for 45 minutes before pronouncing him dead. The post-mortem said his caffeine levels were at 392 milligrams per liter of blood, where the average person would have about 2.
Oh my God.
meaning he consumed about the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee. So the cause of death was caffeine toxicity. According, so they've reached out to the company, Blackburn Distributors, and they said they will now provide a scoop in the caffeine powder.
It took this poor guy, though, eyeballing it, and then don't you think you might have not downed the whole cup after you had that bad reaction to the first taste, though? You know what I'm talking about? Like you said, he made a face, and
I guess you wouldn't think that this would kill you, though, right? I mean, if you dump some
caffeine,
protein
no.
powder, or just you dump protein powder. Oh, if I take too much, I'll pee it out or whatever, right?
I completely agree with you. It would not cross my mind that would be something
could
that
kill
would be,
you.
Yeah, life-threatening. Yeah.
No, I was
Wow.
shocked. I was shocked to see this, and I
A box of heads and a dead trainer from caffeine. Only on the focus group.
see. You understand.
You understand, of course.
Yeah. So, hey, as many of you know, Deep Discount's friends of ours here on the focus group, and we like them, so we'd like you to support them. And you'll find them by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo. Start shopping away. Right now, they have a spring site-wide sale, and that means everything's for sale. But we picked out, John and I, as usual, both picked out a couple of items that we think caught our fancy. And so, Mr. Nash, what did you find this week?
I'll just simply say that it's the month of March. We're giving socks away, as we mentioned at the top of the show. Letters at focusgroupradio.com. Letters at focusgroupradio.com. Send me an image of what you bought, or maybe you could forward the email, the sales confirmation from Deep Discount, and include your mailing address, and I will send you a pair of Focus Group Radio socks. We've done this before, and we've had a lot of response. So if you're getting something from Deep Discount and you want some socks to boot, letters at focusgroupradio.com, include your mailing address. All right, I picked a absolute classic, and I did it for a reason. And I picked Citizen Kane. Now, the reason I picked this Citizen Kane is this is from the Criterion Collection, and they did a beautiful remastering of the original black and white film. There is a ton of added material. I mean, interviews with some of the people that, film historians, anybody that's like survived this production, because this was obviously done quite a while ago. But if you haven't seen Citizen Kane in a while, I highly recommend just watching it again. It's Orson Welles and and really his dazzling debut as a feature director. And he was 25 when he did this, and there are camera angles and techniques that were used in Citizen Kane that just literally defined the modern motion picture and storytelling. So I would, I just say I saw this at Deep Discount, and when I got an eye full of what they had as the extras on this Criterion one, it's just worth it for the extras. But they did a 4K remaster. It looks beautiful. So my recommendation this week is Citizen Kane, because it's one of those award-winning films, and it helped define Hollywood.
You know what? It's so funny. I picked Citizen Kane as well, but it was back ordered, the one I picked. I didn't pick the Criterion one. So make sure.
It's the Criterion one, right? Did
make
you
sure
really
the Criterion.
pick Kane?
I did. I looked at it. I said, you know what? I'm going to get this. And then I saw that it was back ordered. So I said, I'll pick something else. So that's funny. So the Criterion one is available. So be sure to get Citizen Kane. For some reason, we both picked that, which is odd. So I went forward since my pick wasn't there. And I've not seen any of these movies. But I'm a huge fan, as you are, the B-52s. And they often cite Fellini and the director Fellini of having a big influence on them and an inspiration for a lot of their music, these Fellini films. So I thought, you know what? I've not seen any of these. And here's an opportunity to get almost the whole, well, what they say are 14 of the best movies he's done on Blu-ray. And it's the Essential Fellini Collection. It's also Criterion. And they said 100 years after his birth, Federico Fellini still stands apart as a giant in cinema. And have you seen any Fellini films?
I have I've seen a couple, and I hope I'm not misspeaking when I say that one of them is Satyricon.
Yep.
They are avant-garde. They are different. They're a lot of things, but they're classics. And when you sent the link and you said you had picked this Essential Fellini, I just laughed and I said to Bob, I said, Tim has the flair for finding these interesting things that really are cool. I mean, the packaging alone looks fantastic, but I love the connection you made from the B-52s the influence that Fellini might have had on them, because one of your favorite bands. So
Right.
perfect pick, absolutely perfect.
Yeah,
pick.
they talk about him all the time. And actually, in their last album, which was Funplex, they had a song called Juliet of the Spirits, which was one of his movies from 1965. And and because the B-52, it's kind of there to me is the good housekeeping seal of approval. So if the B-52s are telling me you should watch some of this, because if you like us, you're going to like these Fellini movies, similar to with you with Faster Pussycat Kill You and Bob, right?
Yep.
Or
Yep.
or Great Gardens. The other thing about this you mentioned, John, not only is it cool packaging, but it also has two very lavishly illustrated books with hundreds of pages of content and notes by some famous scholars. So, and other filmmakers. So not only would you get these 14 films, plus you get these two illustrated books, and you'd save 41%. It's all for under $150. So if somebody who's a movie lover and you're always looking for something for somebody, I think this would be a good gift.
Yeah, and the fact that you and I went to the Criterion Well, I tell you. Okay, and the release this week is a movie that I really do want to see. It's the Matrix Resurrections, if I've got that right. Yeah,
Yep.
The Matrix Resurrections. For 20 years, coder Thomas Anderson, who's Keanu Reeves, had been living an ordinary life in San Francisco, save for haunting dreams of surreal conflict. It took an encounter with Morpheus for him to realize that his consciousness had again been imprisoned by the Matrix, and that Neo must reunite with Trinity to aid humanity's new rebellion against his cybernetic captors. Lana Wachowski directs this anticipated series. So, interestingly about the Matrix series of films, I just told you the director's name is Lana Wachowski. Well, Lana is a famous. It used to be the Wachowski brothers brought us the Matrix movies, and Lana transitioned a few years ago. And many people look at the Matrix movies as somehow being a metaphor or a simile for her journey in terms of her transition. I'd have to think about that or read more of that critique to see about that. But that's a fascinating little side note that it's Lana who directed this, Lana Wachowski. But these films, remember when the first Matrix came out? I mean, come on.
I was going to say, have you seen the other ones?
Yes, yeah, I've seen all of them.
You like the franchise?
I still think the first one's my favorite.
Yeah.
I like some of the direction the other ones have taken, but I still think the first one would be my favorite.
Okay.
So, folks, again, let me scroll back here to what we were talking about before. It's a site-wide sale, and in honor of the month of March, we're giving Focus Group Radio socks away if you buy something from Deep Discount. Send us a picture of what you buy, or maybe just forward the email receipt you get. Include your mailing address and send it to letters@focusgroupradio.com. And because you've went to Deep Discount, which you get there by going to our site, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, start your shopping, and this month get a pair of Focus Group Radio socks. I picked Citizen Kane, the Criterion version. It is an incredible repackaging of the movie, a 4K restoration, and the added material alone is worth the cost of this entire disc set, because there's so much great stuff. And Kane is like a classic. And Tim picked it too, but the one he picked was out of stock.
Back order.
Tim picked the Essential Fellini Collection, which again, and the genesis here was B-52s made several nods to this director. Hence, Tim wants to find out more. Brilliant, I think. Very brilliant. And the release this week is the Matrix Resurrections. My apologies. So, folks, deepdiscount.com, go to focusgroupradio.com, and then start your shopping by clicking on their logo. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we have the business birthday and some shop talk for you.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hello, everybody. It's Tim Bennett here with Mr. John T. Nash. We are the Focus Group. Learn more about us at focusgroupradio.com. And be sure to get the audio version of the show every Saturday it's released. For those of you who have been with us for the long haul, going on 14 years of listening to us on Saturdays and getting your chores done, we still see a big bump of listeners on Saturdays. So thank you. Mr. Nash, we have our business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
I'd be willing to bet that you've never been to one of these places, but we'll see when I tell you. Mr. Jimmy Haslam, Haslam. Real name is James, not real name, but formal name is James Arthur Haslam III. Born March 9th, 1954. He's celebrating his 68th birthday today. An American businessman and sports executive. Where did he get his claim to fame? He's chairman of the board of the Pilot Flying J Truckstop chain. Which
wait. The Pilot Flying J
Truckstop chain.
So these must be a lot in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, and out west, or where you'd find major interstates. Probably you're right. Probably Harrisburg, between Harrisburg and Vegas.
Well said. Well said.
There's 100 of them. It's owned by the Pilot Corporation, which his dad had started. It's one of the largest, they said, top 10 privately held companies in the United States. Employs more than 24,000 employees. They have a network that provides customers with access to more than 70,000 parking spaces for trucks, so 18-wheelers and those big double trucks. 4,800 showers, 4,300 diesel lanes, and so it's a place to go if you're a trucker and you want to stop and rest up and get a bite to eat or get clean when you're doing one of these long-haul trips. So I'm sure Pilot is a welcome sight to most of these folks that are traveling on the road. With his money, which he apparently made quite a bit of it, he bought the Cleveland. He invested in the Pittsburgh Steelers football franchise, and then he had the opportunity to buy the Cleveland Browns, which he did. He purchased for about $1 billion, and so he owns that. He owns a soccer team from Columbus called the Columbus Crew. And has done lots of philanthropic work. He lived. His roommate was Bob Corker in college, from the senator from Tennessee.
God, Tim, my God, Corker. He was run out on a rail by the former guy, right?
Yeah. So they were roommates.
Little Bob Corker, right?
Yeah, little Bob Corker. Yeah, they were roommates in college, and he had founded a scholars program, and he still worked with and helped Corker as he got into politics, years later. But so I thought that was an interesting sidebar. He's a member of Sigma Chi fraternity. His wife is very much involved in the business with him and managing it. And one of the large oil companies tried to buy them out. I didn't read a lot more into it other than they bought them, and then a few years later, the family bought the shares back from the oil company. I don't think they were running it to the degree that the original private family owners did. So they brought it back from the oil company. Anyway, it's his birthday. Yeah, it's his birthday today. Got a lot of money. If you got enough money to buy a football team for $1 billion,
and to help the truckers on their way, right?
Right. Get a big icy. What are those huge pails of soda?
On the way back into the city off 95, I've been noticing this whenever we go out to see Bob's mom when we come back. We used to always take the Lincoln Tunnel. Now we come up to the GW Bridge, and that's given me the opportunity to see this enormous facility that we drive by on 95. It's actually kind of cool looking, but it's a really big building, lots of glass, lots of lights, and it's all around it are parked trucks. I'm guessing it's one of these places you can go to have a shower. Yep. There was a couple of these, like out at some of these big truck stop places where you can actually have a room, take a shower. They had food on the premises while you're, because a lot of the long haul truckers, don't they either own their own cabs, which they can sleep in. I think some of them have actual accommodations, or you would need a place to stop, right?
Yeah, get hamburger
This
soup.
was just a fueling place, so the guy, the pilot was just a place to get fuel and food, right?
Well, fuel and food, it's like a convenience store. There's 100 of them across the country. So it's a large version of I don't want to say a 7-Eleven, but it caters to the trucking crowd. I went to one of these truck stops in North Dakota. I think I told you, with this very fancy gal, urban gal, call her, in a miniskirt, and she was watching her diet. It was the funniest thing. It was right out of a sitcom. She says she didn't like anything on the menu. She was like you. She wanted egg white omelet. And the woman looks at her. The woman looks at her like,
yeah.
and the woman says, "I'd like an egg white omelet." And the poor waitress just staring at her. She goes, "Do you know what that is?" So the woman goes, I don't, because it's all in a bowl and it's yellow." So then Rita says, "What's your soup today?" She said, "Hamburger." I said, "Rita," I said, "will you please, we're in Fargo, North Dakota here. It's 20 below. You're in a miniskirt. We're at a truck stop. Find something on the menu, because you're not getting an egg white omelet. I don't know where you think you are, the Swan Room at the Four Seasons? I mean,
Swan Room at the
where do you think we are?" She's like, "Hamburger soup." I said, "Actually, it sounds pretty good."
Well, basically what they do is they take broth, right? And they just chop up hamburgers
Beef broth
with
chopped meat, some onion. Throw a piece of cheese on top.
Oh my God. Then you could call it like, I don't know, you could call it, instead of French onions, if you did it like the French onion soup where they do the cheese and the bread, hamburger soup. Boy, you were in a special part of the country, right?
I had well, here you go, Fargo. So anyway, that's that. So happy birthday, Mr. Haslam. Shop talk, Mr. Nash. You found this, and it was part of the tease in the opening when I said invisible work sounds good. For many, many years, John and I have an agency called Triberry Productions, and John, as the creative guy, always says, "I do my best thinking or my best work sometimes when I'm not sitting at a desk and I'm either on my bike or I'm taking a walk or a hike or at the gym or something, and I come up with a solution to a creative problem or come up with some ideas." And so I laugh because this article talks about how people that will sometimes let ideas marinate, and they're not necessarily on the clock, not necessarily behind their desk, but they're working because they're trying to think how to solve a problem. And so this writer has identified this as not procrastinating, but called it invisible work. And it's very difficult to track because you can get your idea at midnight, right? You can get your idea waiting in line to buy a sandwich for lunch or something. So I thought this was brilliant because it acknowledged something that you and I have known and you and I have thought about a lot of times. There's a lot of times you and I work on a project and say, let's let it sit with us for a couple of days and regroup and see where our heads are, right?
Totally. And this, I think the reason I was attracted to this article was it seemed to validate my behavior, for lack of a better phrase. But I cannot, task-based things, like let's say I said to myself, I'm going to do email from 9 to 10 in the morning. I do that, and then I need to just get up and do something else for a while because it's very task-based. But when it comes to solving creative problems, or just even thinking about stuff, like Tim and I are working on a big project for a major corporation right now, and we were presented with a huge amount of information at the start of it, which was all good. You know what I'm talking about, Tim? Like all the research and all that. And you could sit and read it from 9 to 5, but nuance and then all the other stuff that pops up. So Tim said, "Okay, you read it, I'll read it, we'll reconnect later." It wasn't like read it now. It was like read it when you. So I would read it, like during the day. I would call it up on my iPad, read it a little bit, and then the next day we coordinated our efforts. What did you think? What did I think? But I think that this is one of the reasons why, when I look at the corporate structure of having to be in the office and having to solve these problems in the office, that if I did work for somebody, if I wasn't doing consulting or our agency, it would be, I just don't think with creative, you just don't snap your fingers and come up with it on the spot. And as Tim said, I've often commented that my best ideas come to me not in a table and not on my desk, but often if I'm walking, or more importantly, 90% of the time, they come to me on my bike when I'm riding. And I think it's because when you ride or you do something like cycling, it's a narrow bandwidth. You're watching out for traffic, you're staying upright, you're moving at a certain speed, you're doing all these things. And there's this little part of your brain that's free to think and do whatever it wants. Then boom, the idea pops in.
Yeah.
Happens all the time with me.
Yeah, and I think I think it's important to. They also mentioned getting out of the office or getting away from your desk, and I was a huge proponent of that, of going out for lunch, even if it was just something simple, just to get out, get some fresh air, walk around, change the scenery. And my last corporate gig I had, that was frowned upon. I found out later I was in trouble for leaving. How dare you leave the campus? I'd walk out to go get a cup of coffee or something. It was
Yeah,
the market.
I remember one time you called me
Oh
and
my
you're
God,
like,
it was
"I'm calling you from the
absurd.
gulag."
Yeah, it was absolutely absurd. But they forced. So because I went out to go get a Starbucks coffee, they ended up having Starbucks bring in a machine into
Oh
the
my
office.
God,
So
I didn't
that
know that part of the story.
yes, yeah, so that I wouldn't leave. I was like, I like going for the walk across the street.
Clears your head,
Yeah,
right?
and I just thought it was crazy to try to, but it was forced. Keep the people on the campus, don't let them leave. Well, Nike and all those places would do that, right? They would have the
Food and game rooms,
food,
and you
game,
basically stay in the
laundry,
area.
cleaners. Yeah.
Hmm.
Then they talked in here too about Patagonia, which had a policy of allowing employees to come up with their own structure for work. So, if it was a great day to go surfing, let them go surf because they're going to come back and get their work done at 8 o'clock at night or something.
That's right. That's right. And that
And
was I think I'm glad you brought the Patagonia example up because that was a lifestyle thing that also fit really nicely into the argument that they know what they have to do, but
yeah,
it's a gorgeous day. I'll be back at 5. I'll stay till 8 or 9.
yeah, I did work with a specialized bike company out in California many years ago, and they had the same policy about 25 years ago. I thought it was great. I got there one time and I was like, oh, everyone's out riding. And because I was a little early, I said, oh, what? They said, it's a beautiful day. They said, so, go out, ride, do your thing, then come back. Everybody will be back later if you want to come back around 5, 6 o'clock. I was like,
Seriously?
all right. Yeah. And actually, it was fine for me. I went back to my hotel room. I relaxed because I was on, East Coast time. And then I went back later. Everyone was back. So, but it's just a very different way of looking at things, which I think is
Well, it's also an
particularly
acknowledgement that that not all of us think in conveyor belt methodologies. Like we don't just have the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That's when my idea comes.
right.
They did in the article talk about 3 ways to make room for this invisible work. And the first item they talk about is they said incentivize it. Give your teams the money and the time to connect with strangers who will shed new light on old problems. These strangers can be found in your organization and in sectors outside of your norm. Those interactions will spark new conversations, and questions. Gamify the process and treat it like a quest. I just think you could stop at just going outside of your bubble and bouncing ideas off someone because you just never know what comes up. I last week I went to see the Oscar animated short films with my neighbor Barbara down the hall. It's like an hour and 20-minute program. We hopped on the train, we went downtown, had a little. We were early. We had a little tea and a croissant or something. Then we saw the show. While we were going uptown and downtown, I had showed her some stuff I was working on because she loves language, and I was getting her vibe on a few things. She read something, and she's like, "Well, I don't." She goes, "I don't. I hope I'm not upsetting you, but I don't agree with." It's like I got a critique of what I was like doing, which is what I wanted. It was not what I was expecting, and now I've rethought my project, but. And that's the beauty of it, right? You show someone something, they react to it, you get a new insight into something. So what's their next recommendation?
Next one is the one I just talked about earlier. Get out of the building.
Yeah.
And it says, get out, walk around, see what else is happening, because it's going to help change your location, change your focus on things. So just getting out and looking at things differently is a smart thing to do.
And their last one here is take breaks. And Tim was talking about this earlier as well, kind of like when he visited the Trek cycles. So they're like, well,
Yep.
You can come back later because they're all on a break. It's a beautiful day. They're on a 20-mile ride. Think about breaks as scaled in multiple chunks of time. So you could take breaks during the day, but you can also take micro breaks throughout the year. And that could be a day off. That could be a half a day. That could be a dedicated break where you say, I'm taking the afternoon off and I'm going to go to a museum. This is something I used to do when I owned my second agency, or maybe it was the first one. I used to take my assistant art director and our paste up artist and a few other people to a museum now and then, or a gallery for like a 2 or 3 hour thing. And it's amazing to watch what happens when you're in front of artwork or you're talking and laughing. and they'd come back energized, and they'd want to solve some of the problems that we had visually, or some of these, visual problems that we had to do
Right.
for advertising. So I'm a big proponent of this as well. And that includes vacation time. I know Americans are terrible at taking vacation, but getting away, changing your perspective, changing your mood, all helps.
Yep. Shut your phone off.
Yeah, there at the phone.
When
yeah.
you're on vacation, right? I mean, unless there's an emergency you're waiting on, I think it. I have a friend of mine that just decided she's going away for 3 weeks, and she put a note out to everybody, I will not have a phone.
Really?
Yep. She said, if you have an emergency, email me. And
You know,
didn't want
Tim,
any
that
calls.
reminds me. Do you remember the year? I forget what year. We were still on satellite radio. I went to Mallorca for a cycling trip
Yep.
for 7 days. I didn't bother, and I'm sure many people hear me say this right now, and they'll all nod their heads. It's such a pain in the butt to get your phone to go onto another system like in Europe. You could either you have to buy a cheap one or change the SIM card, all this crap. I decided just not worry about it, and it worked out fine. And I actually could use Skype, over,
Right.
and that was kind of new back then, I guess. I called my mom on Skype. I called it and I only had a narrow time band because of the time change between Spain and the rest of the world. It was the nicest thing to be disconnected. And I remember when I landed in New York and the phone came alive and all that stuff started coming, ding, ding, ding.
Populating. Ugh.
It was like Vegas or something. And I just thought, what a drag. Now I have to spend time answering this or deleting it. And I guess you see where I'm going with that.
Well, coming into New York was always pretty back then, too.
Yes.
I mean, thank
it
God
still
they
is.
got. Well, now it is. Did they fix the airport finally?
Oh my God! You didn't read about LaGuardia?
No, I did, but I'm saying before it
well.
JFK, it was
Yeah,
a little,
it's.
little dicey.
I just remember the time you had. Was it who was the NBC Nightly News with? It was the Westchester County Airport. Pete.
Brian. Brian, somebody. I
He
can't
had.
believe we're forgetting his name.
He did this hilarious thing where he riffed on the Westchester Airport. It's a regional airport, folks. He had to apologize, and he gets on the air and he says, Brian Thomas?
No.
Is it Brian
that was-
Thomas, Tim?
No. No, we know Brian from a company. I can't believe we're forgetting his name. He's famous. He took
Well,
Peter
because-
Jennings' spot.
Yeah, and then he got booted because he lied about being in a military aircraft when something happened. But he does this whole thing where he says...
Brian Williams.
Brian Williams, that's right. And he says, when I have some downtime, I like to pack the family in the car and go to the Westchester County Airport. They have fine dining. I mean, he apologized, but he turned it into this really hilarious riff
I know.
on the airport. And I remember you actually saw him do it or heard him, and we laughed and laughed and laughed.
Yeah, it was on
about
Imus, back in the day on Imus, when Imus had the TV show.
it. It was on Imus. You're
He's like,
right.
whenever my wife and I and the kids, we can't decide what we want to have, we'll just go down to the airport and walk the halls and decide on the Westchester County Airport. Because he said, what he did say was, he said, I'm here at the Westchester County Airport where every day is like the fall of Jakarta. Because it was always so confusing and just such a turmoil. The airport, the first time I flew out of there, my mother was petrified. It said, do not fly to Nigeria, bombs, drugs. They had this huge warning sign, enormous, like a billboard. Do not fly to Nigeria. My mother was all
Westchester
nervous.
County Airport.
Yes. Do not accept anything. Blah, 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 blah. My mother was all nervous. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you still
so-
parked on the lawn. You parked on the grass there. I mean, it wasn't just recently. In the last 10 years, they finally got asphalt parking lot.
But thank God for his little comeback. Whenever
Yeah.
we nothing to do, we bundled everybody up. We go down to the airport.
I got to see if I could find that because it for a while you could find it on YouTube. I'll see if I could find that and post it to our Facebook
if
page.
you find it, we've got to play part of it on the
so
show.
snarky. Yeah, it's so snarky.
So, hey, by the way, next time you're up visiting your folks, you might want to go to dinner at the Oxford Airport.
I have been there for dinner a
Have
few
you
times.
eaten there?
Yeah, several times.
It's not bad, right?
It's very good.
And it's an airport.
Right. If we had a private plane, we'd go there.
Yeah, you're right.
I thought I'd
All
get
right.
one of those prop ones. Wasn't Billy going to take you out to teach you how to fly?
Oh, Billy has sent me some amazing information. I can take a virtual online course to learn how to be a manual pilot. And then once you do that, he's given me a couple of instructors to talk to go out for some of your test flights. There's one right up at the upstate near the house. And yes, I am still obsessed with it. And Billy also sent me the dates for the Ghent fly-in, which is the one I went to with him back in September. It was a gorgeous day. It was like my birthday weekend, as a matter of fact. And I was a kid in a can. You know how I was. I mean, all these beautiful planes, and all the pilots are happy to talk to you about. And they're very mechanical. You Tim, I think you would really be. This would appeal to you.
I'm too nervous in the winds with these little planes.
Just the fact that you could walk up to the control panel and the cockpit and have a pilot explain what each thing does. It's very non-electronic. It's very mechanical. Like, pull this stick, this thing goes down. I can't wait for the next flying, and I do want to take flying lessons.
Well, you could fly from Oxford down to here. I wonder how long that would take you.
You could rent a plane. I'm going to say that I bet it would take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to fly down. I'm not sure how.
Now, from Teterboro, it might be a little quicker because you can go right out over the ocean. Boom.
Yes, that's right. You but then you have to do. Billy explained that you have to fly line of sight. You would fly along the coast and then veer in. But hey, Tim, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. And I sent some of the information that Billy, our listener Billy Kittner, sent us, and Emma's partner Alex is a pilot, or he has his pilot's license.
That's right.
And he's like, everything your friend sent you, just do it, and then find someone to take you up, and you'll get certified. So
wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah. But we won't be flying out of the Westchester County Airport.
No, Teterboro. just
to tie that back to what we were talking about before. So hey, everyone, we're going to wrap it up there. We want to thank you all for joining us today on the Focus Group. It means a lot to us that you spend time with us every week. Check out focusgroupradio.com, and you'll learn about Tim and I, and you'll also learn about our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, available on Tuesdays. And check out deepdiscount.com. You go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, start shopping away. It's the site-wide sale. March is awards month. I picked the Criterion Collection Citizen Kane. It's a 4K remaster with tons of amazing extra content that I think you will truly enjoy. Tim picked a really cool set of discs from Criterion as well. They're the collected movies of Fellini, inspired by his love of the B-52s and their love of some of the Fellini films as well. And the new release this week is Matrix Resurrections, the final chapter of the Matrix movies. Again, deepdiscount.com. We're also giving away socks, letters at focusgroupradio.com. If you buy something from Deep Discount, just remember to include your mailing address and you'll get some Focus Group Radio socks. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the new week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.